大家好，我是 UNAA ART 美术高考培训中心的李校长。我们现在是在罗德岛作品集培训中心。那么大家看到，现在这是后院的庭院，由罗德岛著名的教授、摄影家壮在为我们的作品集拍摄。那么拍摄作品集呢，也是非常要求技术含量很高因为壮这个教授呢，刚刚给我们的学生，就是寒假班的学生刚刚讲完摄影的课程，那么现在呢应该是下午的3点多钟，这个时间呢拍摄这个室外的作品集呢是最佳的时间，那么我们现在整个庭院当中的作品集呢都是由我们暑期的作品集同学完成的，这些作品集呢都是为了参加今年的美国的各大艺术院校准备的作品这些作品呢大部分都是以雕塑为主，以室外雕塑为主那么大家看到前面呢有这个李胜宇同学呢做的总统山总统山呢这是微缩版的，所以这个也是一个雕塑的一个尝试那么这个雕塑呢是用水泥做上去的，原来只是一面墙，所以呢这个庭院的总体设计，我们这些墙壁呢做成这个微缩版的一个各个非常著名的一些景点那么大家看一下后面呢是有一个富士山这个富士山呢也是用水泥和油画布做成那么现在呢基本上呢设计呢完成那这边呢做了一个是导师的一个雕像，这个雕像呢主要展示呢就是一个艺术导师手里面拿着这个设计的工具这标志着是设计方面的一个艺术的引领，也是一个艺术的这个创造的一个课程那么底下呢可以看到呢是拿着一个调色盘那么这个调色盘呢象征着是纯艺的一种代表那么整个这个创作的一个源于呢就是源于这个自由女神像，所以呢创作艺术也需要一个空间那么这个材料呢也是用新的材料做成这个里面呢是由木头的框架，还有呢加上这个螺丝钉子先把骨架搭好之后呢也是用油画布水泥浆把它完成，所以这个作品呢也比较高，差不多整体的高度呢也有3米左右那么底下呢是一个鱼池呢也是我们创作当中庭院当中的设计一个主要的一个部分，所以呢坐落在这样的一个鱼池当中呢做这样一个雕塑也是一种创新那么往后看呢是一个瀑布，那夏天的时候呢我们这边有喷泉通过瀑布，然后水呢流到这个小溪当中里面夏天呢也有锦鲤鱼，那由于冬天呢锦鲤鱼就挪到了室内。还有后面的这些雕塑，呢这些作品呢也源于巴西的这个上帝这样的一个雕像。那这个作品呢主要是上帝造万物，世上一切的所有的植物，所有的动物旁边看见还有一只羊那么旁边有树，还有更多的一些植物，这些都是上帝所造所以呢这里面寓意着上帝造万物这样的一个雕塑那么旁边这个装置艺术呢，它是由废弃的2个油桶，然后这个经过李成宇同学呢精心的创意，把它做成了一个坦克车那个坦克车呢这是设计的第1步那么第2步呢把坦克车呢是变成了一个礼炮它还会有一个2次的创作，2次的创作呢会把一些鞭炮还有一些这个礼炮重新的去编排还有这些的一些子弹呢也可以做成呢这个鞭炮的形状。那2次创作呢今天拍摄完之后，把2次的创作的一些这个形状呢还会展示出来那么大家可以看到这个坦克车上有很多的图案，利用版图画的这种形式进行创作我们的教授呢在为这个作品呢拍细节那么作品集呢要求的拍摄呢 也应该是非常非常的严谨和美观。所以呢，在室外这么大的装置艺术呢还不多见。还有一个呢，就是旁边的一个水泥的雕塑。水泥雕塑呢，也是李胜宇同学在这个今年的暑假期间创作的这幅作品啊。因为今年暑假呢，也是这个7月份、8月份在罗德岛的培训中心进行2个月的培训。当时呢也是疫情比较严重，所以呢，为了记录这个2020年从3月份一直到今天这样疫情的一个状况下，所以创作了这幅作品。这幅作品呢也是用废弃的一些钢片还有水泥把它做成所以呢，整个庭院当中都是学生在今年暑期期间把它完成那么这些作品呢都是全部参加今年的高考那个做的作品集。那么去年的作品集非常非常的成功那么在去年的作品集当中，有8位同学在罗德岛作品集培训中心经过2个月的培训，那么最后呢，都以优异的成绩考上美国的很多的艺术院校，并且获得了高额的奖学金。好，那么今天呢，也非常的谢谢我们的导师罗德岛设计学院的壮导师来为我们学生今天上这样很有意义的一课。那么也衷心的感谢所有的家长还有学生了解我们的一些方方面面。所以呢，我们在 YouTube、在优酷、在 B 站上都有我们的频道，那么欢迎大家订阅转发。您的订阅转发支持是我们拍摄视频的最大的一个动力。
Okay, so art portfolio. There's not much to say except I think originality counts for an awful lot. You know, some programs are looking for a certain vision of the world. Some programs are looking for concepts which you can develop within your work. Some programs are looking for unique use of materials and methods. So thinking about, you know, where you are going to apply for school and looking into what those schools represent and trying to gear your portfolio that might work towards what those schools would like to see. But the big thing is, I think, is being original, and everybody has their own ideas, so it's got to come from your own interests, and make sure that your process also aligns with the interests that you're trying to communicate. And that's about it, basically. Of my first book, which I call China, Paradox and Progress. And in 2007, I was amazed at how the progression of China, with all the construction and building and everything that was being produced that was new, sort of coexisted with the old. And I was really sort of interested in that juxtaposition between new and old. And so I'm on a photo shoot with a colleague who, this girl who actually became a very famous model afterwards, she was a student at the school, and she was modeling another student's outfit. That's a rope, you know, that's a really heavy rope thing that she's got on. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is, but anyways, between photographs. And my colleague was the type of colleague that he would set up lights and he would get a tape measure to measure exactly how far away to, you know, and all this stuff. And for me, I'm like, I don't work that way, because I'm interested in the moment. You know, he's interested in creating a scene. I'm interested in finding a scene, something that is real, something that is happening, not necessarily something that I create. Although I've done plenty of that in my own studio. I did plenty of that. But I wasn't interested in that so much when I was in China. So between photographs, between setups, her name is Yu Xiao. I said, Yu Xiao, follow me. We're gonna let's go take some pictures. And the two of us just walked off. Everybody else stayed behind. The two of us walked off, and we walked down this back road here. This is in Hebei, and I said, okay, I think this is good. And she turned around and she wasn't looking at me. She wasn't responding to me. She turned around and she's looking at the sky and the light. And just as she did that, this guy behind her is walking by, and I took this photograph. Now, I've had people say, well, you could remove that guy very easily with Photoshop. And I'm like, that's the whole point of the picture, is the juxtaposition of the old and the new here, the girl and the guy.
The light color and dark.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Contrast.
And right, exactly. That figure to ground relationship. This guy really stands out because he's much darker. So that was the cover of my first book.
And then the background is all those. It's
very old.
It's going to demolish. It's going
to
out the picture. And then meanwhile you have such a modern fashion girl.
Yes.
It's a contrast.
I haven't been back there since this day when we took these photographs. I really want to, it's only about 2 hours north of Beijing, 2 or 3 hours. So one of these days I'll get back up there and see what it's like. But it's an old walled town, very old. Okay, and the fifth thing, and this is probably the most difficult for many photography students to understand. But John Sarkowski talks about the thing itself. And what he's saying is that a photographer must recognize the difference between the photograph that they make and the subject or the reality that is photographed. They are two different things. For instance, how many times have you seen a beautiful sunset and taken a photograph of it, and then when you look at it you go, well, no, it was much more beautiful in person. This doesn't really do it justice. That's because you're not looking at the sunset. You're looking at your picture of the sunset. That's two different things. And most people think that if they see something interesting, that it will make an interesting picture. But that's not the case. Not unless you pay attention to all of these other things will you make an interesting photograph. That's why not everybody's photographs are good. They might take photographs of things that are interesting, but the photographs themselves aren't interesting because they don't pay attention to how they make the photograph. And a good photograph, although a good photograph depends a certain amount on the subject, mostly a good photograph depends on those choices, that the decisions that the photographer makes when they take the picture. That's the thing that determines what a good photograph is. So we'll go through the rest of these pictures. I'm not quite sure how many we have. This is an iPhone picture in Paris in 2013. I take a lot of photographs not knowing what they're going to look like until after I see them. This is in Newport, Rhode Island, not too far from here. But that's a building, that's a historical society building. And I'm taking the picture of the building through the tree. You can just barely see the building at all. The tree is what the main thing is here. And the thing about photographs also is that, and I haven't even really talked about this idea of color versus black and white. But color has its own emotional quality. If you're a costume designer or an architect, you learn about these things, the combination of colors, how they work together. If you have a red room as opposed to a white room, there's a big difference in the energy that you might have walking into one of those rooms. every color has its own emotional content. And one thing about photography is that most people make color photographs because the world is in color. They don't think about how color works. The world is color, so I'm going to take a color picture. Photographers who photograph in black and white think about what happens when you remove color and all you have are the basics of shades of gray. It has a completely different feel and meaning. That's one of the reasons why I like black and white. But I've never stopped taking color pictures either, because I think there are things that I photograph because of the color, but if I don't photograph it because of the color, then it ends up as a black and white photograph. What does this look like to you?
A person. or like, it's almost bird-like for me. Like it's like an eagle.
It's a sea lion.
Yeah, sea.
It's a sea lion. A big seal.
Seal.
And this is in Alaska. And it's in a big tank, and there's a big huge piece of glass where you can see him swimming around in there.
Frame or frame?
Frame and frame. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I took about a dozen pictures of him, or her, I don't know. And this is the one where it looked mysterious, like what the heck is it? What is it doing? This is just a simple photograph of my sliding door during a storm. A rainy day, I took a photograph of my backyard, but there was a leaf that was stuck on the window. Now, in reality, it doesn't look like this.
Mm-hmm.
But the photograph is different than the reality. And it becomes something else. And I removed all the color. So essentially it's a very sad, becomes a very sad photograph now. You don't have any bright oranges or greens or anything like that to make you feel good. To be a good photographer, one must understand how photographs communicate meaning. And as I said before that, photographs communicate meaning through symbolism. Now the symbolism in this photograph, I'm not going to tell you the specifics of taking the photograph, but the symbolism of this photograph is very simple. You have three things. You have the two people who are climbing a mountain or a hill looks like with a slippery slope, and then you have the sky. That's it. The people, the hill, the sky. And the hill has its own symbolic meaning. A hill or a mountain. It's a barrier. It's a challenge. The sky can have different meaning depending on what the weather is like. A dark sky, a blue sky, they have different symbolism to them. A blue sky, which would be gray in a photograph, would have a calming effect. A sky with lots of clouds is more turbulent. And then you have the two subjects here. And again, this is where the figure to ground relationship, dark figures in front of with a light background. So they stand out. But the thing about the figures is, the symbolism behind the figures is directly connected to body language, gesture, dress. And in this photograph, you can't see their faces, so they become anonymous. And it's an older woman and a younger girl. They just happen to be mother and daughter, but you don't even know that when you're looking at the photograph. It just becomes about this older woman who is helping the younger girl with this challenge. So the symbolism there, if you know how to read a photograph, the symbolism is there for you to sort of decipher on your own. But that's just it. You need to be able to think about what you're seeing and how what you see and how the photographer captures it determines what you think about the picture. This is a cruise on the Yangtze. I'm just going to go through these fairly quickly. This is from a project that I worked on for nearly 20 years. I think this is the only photograph from this. I have so many bodies of work that, you know, a lot of these photographs are from different bodies of work. I just arbitrarily picked out pictures that, that I had on hand that I could include here. And again, what they mean, you know, I can tell you what they mean to me, but